Morning, everyone. Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. How are we all today?
Good morning, happy Monday.
Morning. Happy Monday on this bright Monday morning. Brighty.
I've got it's grey here for me.
Same, it's greys outside. I just looked outside.
Yeah.
It is cloudy and foggy.
But it
Yeah.
is bright. It could be worse. It could be gloomy and grey, but it's
Yeah,
bright and grey. So
exactly.
I'm take it. But that
It's true.
also means snow is potential.
Yes.
It is in like the early stages of March, but in England weather for us.
Absolutely.
So welcome everyone whilst everyone is joining, and I'm sure we'll have a few more people joining in the next couple of minutes. I would like to welcome Dan from Tectonic. You've all met Dan from Module 1 and he's back with us to give us the 2 workshops on no code. So this is something new for us as well. So I'm really excited to see what this workshop will entail. And I hope that you guys enjoy this workshop as well. So Dan, I'm handing it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me back. And thank you all for being here as well. Just want to make sure that, can you see my screen, everyone?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, cool, perfect. Amazing. So, yep, you've all met me before. I obviously am one of the co-founders of Tectonic, but I also build products and services. And I'm just going to go through this workshop to give you some content and context about what no code actually is and how it can be used. And then we can, and then maybe in Wednesday session, we can go through some more stuff. But yeah, really excited. Should we unpin? I don't know if it's just me, but I can also see the MSDUK workshop 1 list. Can we unpin that and make me full screen?
Yeah. Doing that now.
Yeah, amazing. High definition, Dan. Just like my mom would have wanted. Cool, perfect. Excellent. So you kind of already know me, but let me give you a little bit of context. So that's up there, that's me. I studied computer science at university and basically failed. I didn't really understand anything. Nothing was really getting through to me, and it was really difficult and complex to understand. Once I left university, I did tech support for a while. Then I became a copywriter. Then I worked on our music tech startup that we've spoken about, and I'll speak a bit about it some more. Co-founded Tectonic, and then became an educator and developer and build apps for people. And who knows what's next? I have no idea. I'm the growth and innovation lead at Tectonic and do a lot of the education. I develop apps and services for clients. I call myself the chief non-technical officer of a company that we started called Evermind, which I can show you as well. I am the founder and developer of multiple projects and apps, and I always have this slide in there, this bit in there, because I'm always building something new. And after all of that, I still can't code. So I'm able to build products and services and generate revenue and do cool things still without having to code. And you don't have to either. So I'm going to go through this slide. No question is off limits. If you don't understand something, it's again because I've done a terrible job of explaining it. I use a lot of these terms and concepts all the time. So if you don't know if you don't understand what I'm saying, or you need some more clarification, please just either jump off of mute or put it into the chat, and I will answer as best as I can. So you may have heard us talk a bit about our first startup. It was a music technology business that we started in like 2017, 2015, so long ago. And we wanted to help DJs and musicians understand their data so that they could make more money. So our thought process was, so Nana, my brother and the CEO, was trying to find up and coming DJs, but couldn't find them because they weren't very good at promoting themselves. So he's like, okay, I wanted to build a platform. We wanted to build a 3-sided marketplace to help DJs, fans, and venues kind of connect so that we could, and then we realized 3-sided marketplaces are a terrible idea. So we decided to focus predominantly on the DJs and wanted to help them understand their business and their marketing so that they could be more effective, which then meant that they could be promoted, be out there more, and then get more money and then live their best lives. We did a few things right, and loads of things wrong, which we spoke about before. We said we didn't understand our customer. We didn't understand the problem that we were trying to solve. We listened to their wants and not their needs. And we built the product based on our assumptions. So one of the things that we did, and I don't know if we spoke about it, was one of the features that they wanted that we thought that we should build was being able to upload their music to multiple places at the same time. So typically it would take ages to upload your music to SoundCloud, Mixcloud, and a bunch of other places. So we were like, okay, let's help these DJs promote their stuff. So just upload it once and it'll push it everywhere. This was about 3 years into our journey. So we raised some more money, loads of money to build this feature out. When we built it, we were telling people about it. They seemed so excited. Everyone was like, oh my God, this is amazing. We eventually built it and then crickets, like nothing, like nobody cared. We were like, damn it. Like, what did we do wrong? And one of the things we did wrong was that we didn't talk to our users and understand what it is that they were actually trying to do and what was the biggest priority for them. What we realized was early stage DJs didn't have that many mixes out. So it wasn't that much of a time saver or a benefit for them. And then if you were more seasoned and you probably had a manager or a team who did that stuff for you, so you didn't care. But had we asked them beforehand, we would have realized that we shouldn't have spent all that money building something that nobody wanted. So we raised a bunch of money and built the wrong thing based on things that we thought were right. And the chances are we would have been wrong whether we spent 10K or $1 million. Because the chances are you're probably wrong anyway. But it's not just about the money that we spent. It's about the speed of learning. With the development process of building out those features and features across our whole product, they took ages because it was coded and cost a lot of money because it was coded. But the fact that it took ages meant that we didn't know that we were wrong for ages. What you're trying to do is figure out you're wrong as quickly as possible, or you're right as quickly as possible, so that you can then iterate on things. So when Facebook, and I hate the term that Mark Zuckerberg used, like move fast and break things, I like to use a phrase like move fast and learn things. I'm trying to get my thing out as quickly as possible so I can learn the truth or a truth from the market. I remember with our startup, me, Joshua, and our lead designer, one time, and it really just sticks in my mind, we were in a room for like 8 hours, 10 hours, just arguing, soft arguing, but arguing about what we thought that our customers and users wanted. And we were just like, no, they really want to do this. No. And we had that whiteboard. It looked like a typical startup scene. We had all the things on the board. And then ultimately it didn't matter because we were arguing over theory and not reality. We were arguing over opinions and not reality. So you want to prioritize the speed of learning. Had we put something out there and people were like, no, we don't even want that, or we don't want to use that, then it would have been easier to have those discussions within the team and also say, oh, you don't want that. What do you want instead? And why? So you want to prioritize the speed of learning with evidence from the market, right? It's especially if you're in a team, it's much easier to say 5 users signed up and paid £10 for this thing. Let's have a discussion about that. Then I think 5 users will sign up and pay £10 for this. So what you want to do is always just prioritize your speed of learning with actual evidence. And it's much better to make decisions based on evidence than theory. And this is why I use, and I'll talk about it in a bit, but why I love no code, because it allows me to build things quickly, which means that I can learn quickly why I'm wrong. So the app we've raised money for and spent 5 years of our life on, probably more actually. And that whole business was wrong fundamentally at its core. Like you didn't realize it, but like at its core, it was not a good business. I could probably build that product in less than a couple of days and still find out that we were wrong. But now I have evidence and insights and budget and time to pivot. So rather than finding out in 5 years that we were wrong, I could find out in like a week and then use the information to then decide what to do next. That's the power of no code. So, and I'll explain a bit about what no code is. I hate the term, by the way. I don't know what a better term would be, but I hate the term. Yeah, it's a tricky concept to understand, so let me help. Side note, if you can use Excel or Google Sheets, you can use no-code tools. Like I'm dyslexic, I am bad with numbers, and I am able to use these tools. As soon as you start understanding these concepts, some of the concepts, it starts getting a bit easier. So let's talk about apps first, just to get the brain going. So name me different types of apps that you have. So an example is mobile apps. Does anyone have any other types of like apps? So that is answering a question, but in a slightly different way. So let me just go through it and I'll explain a bit more. So there's lots of different types of apps that people can build. Yeah, so Victor got it right, web apps. Google add-ons and Chrome extensions is actually a type of thing as well, which I don't have in here. But the types of products and services that people think are digital products and services. So you've got websites, web apps, native apps, progressive web apps, desktop apps, and Chrome extensions, which I can also talk about in a bit. And you can all build all of these things with no code. So websites aren't really apps. So websites are usually static and don't change much, or they don't change much based on user interaction. So an example might be a hairdresser's website. If you go into it, you can look at the times that they're on, maybe pictures of fantastic haircuts, but it's not really an app. It's just a website. Web apps change based on user interaction. So when you visit something like canva.com, www.canva.com or instagram.com, you're using the web app version. It lives on the internet and it's accessible through your internet browser on your desktop or your phone. And ultimately as well, you're still interacting with the information that Canva has or Instagram has. So for example, if you upload a picture on instagram.com, it will still be there on the Instagram app on your phone, right? So you've got the information, it's held somewhere, and you just basically got like two different front ends where you can see the same information. And the important part about web apps is that it lives on the internet and thus isn't beholden to the rules of the stores that apps are on, i.e. the Google Play Store and the Apple Store. So native apps or mobile native apps live on your phone and are downloadable through the Android or Apple Store. And they usually use some of the phone's native functions. So like the GPS or the camera, and you can still access some of those functionality on the web app. But typically when you go to download an app from the App Store and you press the download button, that's a native app. The thing with native apps is if you were to build one, you are beholden to the rules of Apple or Android. Android is a little bit more lax, but basically you have to have, so Apple firstly wants you to have a developer license, which is like $99 a year, maybe more now. And then when you submit your app, they basically check it, make sure it fulfills their rules. And then if it doesn't, they'll tell you a bit later that it hasn't. And then you have to ask them why. And then you have to fix that thing. And then you have to resubmit it. And then you're through this whole loop. So for example, with one of our clients back in the day, we built a native Apple app, iOS app, and we submitted it. And then about 2.5, 3 weeks later, they said, oh, it's not eligible to be put on here. We were like, okay, why? A week later, they said, oh, it doesn't have a privacy page. So we put a privacy page on, and then we submitted it again. And a week later, they said, oh, it doesn't have a terms and conditions page. And I'm like, why didn't you tell us both of these things? So it took us ages just to even upload the app. And at that point, we still didn't even know if anybody wanted the thing. Because, yeah, that's just the way it works, right? Like you still have to put your thing out there. So that's one of the reasons why typically I don't build or don't really use native apps as well. And a lot of people don't really download native apps as much. Like getting people to download an app from the App Store is a bit long. Whereas going to a website and saying, go to this website and do this thing, much easier for people to understand and do. Progressive web apps are like a hybrid between the two. They used to be really popular, but they're not so much anymore. I'm not sure why. But they're like web-based and allow you to save the icon onto your mobile device. If you've got Android or iOS, you can actually save websites onto your homepage as well, onto your phone's homepage, so that you can just access them at the click of a button. Yeah, but you don't need to worry too much about that. And then desktop apps are applications that you can install on your desktop or laptop. They can either be downloaded from a software provider. So like you can go to like canva.com and then they'll say, do you want to download a desktop app? You can download it and basically it'll live on your computer, or you can go from the App Store. And again, if you do the App Store thing, then again, be holding to the rules of Apple or Android or Google, sorry. And they're typically used for resource heavy work like video editing, or if they need tight integration with your machine. So like using a camera or something like that. Sorry, my bell is ringing. Can you just hold on a second?
Sure.
I thought it was my brother's partner with the baby that needed help, and I was like, oh, but it wasn't. It was a delivery. Cool. So does that all make sense, everything that I'm saying? Just to give you some context about like what the digital products are, and then I'll talk a bit about actual development in a bit. Kind of cool. It will hopefully make sense as we go on, but if you don't understand anything, just please let me know. This is all just context setting. I'm going to explain what no code is in a bit. Cool. So those products, many of those products are built with code. So writing code is how people typically interact with computers to get them to do what they want. You want to build a product, typically people will write code like JavaScript or something else, HTML. Back in the day, people used to write in binary. So like ones and zeros. Computers are basically machines. So in order to talk to the machines, people were writing in ones and zeros, or they're using these things called punch cards. And then after that, they started using programming languages that had roots in American English to get computers to do tasks. So they started off writing ones and zeros, then they started using coding languages to get them to do things. So I want to now build a website. I'm typing in code to do that. Computing actually used to be a verb. So, and women used to be the first computers. So, which is really interesting. And then men realized how powerful computers were and ruined it for women everywhere, as usual. But women used to be the first computers. And the computers used to be so big that they would fill a room. And then moths would get into them and actually break them, which is why when something doesn't work in a computer application, it's sometimes called a bug. So they'd have to actually go into the room that the computer was in and like sweep out all of the actual bugs that were stopping the machine from doing the thing that it was doing. And as computers and the world became more complex, different languages were developed, focusing on different things like maths, networking, graphics, just like as computers got more and the what got more complicated and people wanted to build more stuff, yeah, the languages became more and more complex. that people were using. There became more and more of them. And different languages have different strengths and weaknesses, but one thing that they all have in common is that they all take time to learn. So you have to, if you wanted to build something, then you have to learn the programming language and then be good at the programming language and then build the thing. And learning to code is hard. Like learning any other language, it's hard. And the chances are, if you want this program, you don't want to learn how to code. You actually just want to start a tech-enabled business or improve some efficiency in some way within your own organization. Yeah. And because learning to code is hard, less than 4% of the people in the world are able to do it. Someone said that, imagine if only 4% of the people in the world could write. Like and because it's only 4%, that's why developers charge so much, and development costs for tech businesses can be really high. For example, I remember when we were doing our music tech startup, and I worked in a media agency, and so had a lot of access to developers who were building cool things. And I would constantly ask one of my friends if he wanted to be our CTO. And I said, this is a challenge that lots of people have. They want to build something tech enabled. They need a coder. Coders are rare, unicorns. So whenever they find out anyone can code, they're like, oh, do you want to be my chief technical officer? After a while, my friend was like, hey, Dan, I earn £500 a day. I could be working at Facebook or Google or one of these cover companies, and I've got my own projects that I'm working on, which means that unfortunately, I can't work on your thing because the chances are it's not going to work out even with me. And that really hurt until I realized that he was being kind. I was like, oh man, like it's really hard to get developers. Low supply, high demand means high prices for development. But in the late 90s and early 2000s, tools came along that tried to make it easier, that tried to abstract that code and make it easier for people to instruct computers to do things. So rather than writing in programming languages, you had like more visual tools that made it easier for you to build stuff like websites. Back in the day, building a website, you'd have to like, I mean, even now you can still do it, but you had to like write code to build a website. Now you've got things like, back in the day you had Dreamweaver, you've got WordPress, you've got Squarespace, you've got these visual tools that still allow you to build products, digital products, but you don't have to code. If you've used Squarespace before, you've built a website. And with the growth of the internet, people tried to make tools that allowed regular folks like designers or business people like us, to be able to build software, applications, and automations. So rather than writing in programming languages, can you make it so that it's much more visual to be able to build things so that you don't have to do all that other stuff? Because most of the time you don't care about how the code is written. I actually just want to get customers or I want to make my business more efficient. Cool. So I spoke about what code is. I'm going to talk about what no code is now. So no code is a term that encompasses a suite of tools and services and applications on the market that help people who don't know or don't want to code build software. So lots of tools, services, or applications that allow you to basically build software without having to write code. I know lots of developers who use no-code tools because they're quicker. I remember with one project recently that I was doing last year to do with like Web3 stuff. I had to code to build it. So I was like, okay, cool. Let me just see if I can remember how to do any of this stuff. Even just to set up my computer, it took me a day and a half. And in a day and a half, I could have built 3 products, probably more. So, yep, a mix of no code, low code, and code is the best way, probably, depending on your goals. Like, I don't say no code is better than code. It's just different. Like they're just a different thing. So like being able to do all 3 is probably the most useful of all the skills. So number of people who could do things, ease of use on the side. So writing 1s and 0s, very few people can write stuff in 1s and 0s because it's really hard. Then writing in code, more people can do it. it's still pretty tricky to do. Using no-code tools, and I'll talk about a few of them later, but like more people can do it because it's easier to understand and ease of use. And I had this slide, who knows what's next? We've gone from the fewer people to more people being able to use it, easier to build stuff. I was like, who knows what's next? Turns out it's AI. There's lots of tools on the market that are coming out that you can basically just say, hey, make me an app, a to-do list app, and it will just make it. Like within a few years, I reckon that's going to be the future. But just to bring this a bit home, no code tools. So there's a tool called Glide, and that's the tool that I started on back in 2017. Basically, the concept was turn a Google Sheet into an app in 5 minutes. And I was like, what? I didn't understand it. And then when I started using it, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I started understanding how to build apps and products. And I'll show you some of the stuff that I've built. But ultimately, as you can see here, you've got like the email address, the name of the person, their position. And then you can see the name of the person, their email address. And so basically what you're doing is linking the data that is in this list turn it into an app, right? So for example, if you had a list of products that you sell, you've got like the name, the price, the image, the description, and maybe a link to a buy button. And then ultimately, if you had that, you could turn it into an app in like no time. And you probably already have that list, right? No code also lets you do things called automations. So an automation is ultimately, again, how computers work. When this happens, do this. So whenever this one says when a record is updated, then maybe create a new record here, and if the date is 1 week from now, do something else. So what you're saying is basically when this happens, so imagine with one of your product apps, maybe that when someone presses a buy button and it's successful, then send them an email. That's ultimately an automation. And rather than having to code it out, it's much more visual. So this is kind of how things kind of look like depending on the design of the product, but it's in plain English. And that's one of the key things. You're not really writing in code. You're just thinking about things logically. Like for example, writing this allow 30 minutes for account setup in code would probably be like lines and lines of code. Here, it's just a button, right? So you're just, rather than writing in abstract terms, you're just doing things in plain English. And they get more and more complex, but for example, this is a tool that I'm going to learn soon called Flutterflow. And again, it's a visual development tool that allows you to build Android and iOS apps without having to code. And then you can also, and it also exports it into code, so you can do codery things later. But ultimately, you're able to build products and services without having to code, which means that you can actually get to market faster so that you can learn from the market. Does anybody want this thing? And once it's out there, then you can iterate on it quicker. Ultimately, no code is still code. You're still telling the computer what to do. But as I said, you're just doing it visually. And you're talking in plain English and with significantly less typing. And as we're seeing with some of these AI tools, you're doing it in even more plain English and with even less typing to be able to get the outcome that you want so that you can learn quicker. Cool. So that's giving you some context, but let me show you some of the tools that I use, because that might make it a bit easier to understand. Let me share my screen. Let's go here. Oops. Oh, I will shrink myself some more so you can. Ooh. So let's go to Glide. So this is Glide. And basically when the pandemic first started, there was a little like Excel sheet thing that went round that basically said, hey, like depending on either your age or whether you were in the National Health Service or whether you were in like different groups, categories, you could enter stores at different times. And it was, so it's like, oh, from 6 to 7, if you were elderly, then you can go to Marks and Spencer's at this time. And if you were at this, and I saw that Google sheet and I was like, I don't like numbers. This sheet is terrible to read. It's not formatted right. Like, so let me build an app to help people understand that. So let me go to here. So I basically built this thing called Safer Times. So Safer Times is a little mobile app or web app that allows you to be able to figure out what's the best time to shop. So for example, if you click on Asda, it had an image of Asda, it had the times that you could go. And then it had a map when it's linked to your phone. It shows up on a map of the nearest store to you. Same thing with Morrison's. And if, for example, you scan that QR code on your phone, or if you go on, oops, that was not what I'm meant to do. If I copy that link and put it in the chat, you can use it on your phone. So basically what happens is, let's go here, go to here. And yeah, it just basically just turns into like a mobile app on your phone, and you can use it and interact with it. The benefit of building something like this was it was quick. So it took me like 5 hours, and most of it was just spent because I was making the images look nice, because I'm not good at Photoshop stuff. And the core data came from a Google sheet that I created, which is basically just this. So the name of the store, let me zoom in a bit. Name of the store, I had a link to some of the images, the group that they were in, the details for the text, and the times, right? So if I just go here, and the times, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then once you imported it, that's what kind of looks like. And ultimately, that is all the information that is on here, right? So you have a list of information, put it into a Google Sheet, and then you could just make an app pretty much like in 5 minutes. And this was used by about 5,000 people, I think, at the beginning of the pandemic, which is great for something that only took like 5 hours work. So what I'm thinking is, the core thing is actually trying to put something out into the world for you to learn from and iterate on. So for example, when I first put it out, I didn't have any images, and it was useful. And then I've realized that lots of elderly people were looking at it. So I made the images and made it bigger and clearer so that they knew what they were pressing, what they were doing. But yeah, the tool like Glide allows you to build an app from a Google Sheet in like 5 minutes. I also built, let's go back here. Yeah, in the pandemic, again, when I was bored, I built an app called Free Shit, which was, and again, during the beginning of the pandemic, there was a list of products and services that were free for people so that people stayed inside. And there was just lots of information going around. So I basically just collected that information and put it into a Google Sheet, and then turn it into an app which people could use. So for example, Calm had some information about Calm, and then when you press the link, it took you to the Calm website. I don't know if that link is still available, but yeah. So that's what no code is. No code allows you to build products and services without having to write code. I go to Evermind. So Evermind is one of the businesses that I work on, and it is a platform that allows you to get therapy in your mother tongue. If I go to, so the marketing page is built on Squarespace. However, if I go to, oops, profile. But this site is the web app, and it's built on a tool called Softer. So Softer allows you to build websites by hosting data on a platform called Airtable, which I'll talk about in a bit. But ultimately, it is a list of therapists that you can filter by language. So these are all the English-speaking ones, Spanish-speaking ones, German-speaking ones. Once you click on the link, you can see their details. You can see information about them, see a video about them. You can book on them, pay, and then send you a private Zoom link, and then you can message them. And then you can have a session with them. The thing about this platform is when we first had the idea, we were trying to get it developed and coded, and we spoke to a bunch of developers, and some people were like, oh, it's going to cost you like 120K to build like a bespoke solution, to build a platform that allows you to do this. We did not have 120K, and because we'd been burnt by raising money for something before and like not really knowing, we decided to go down the no code route. And all in all, this platform, it costs like, I think maybe £70 a month, maybe. And that's back then, it doesn't cost that now. I think I could probably do it for like £20 a month on Softer to host the website. Airtable, where all the information is held, is free. And then we embedded something called Squarespace scheduling into the platform. And then it's just connected to Zoom. So for less than £100 a month, maybe, probably less than 70, we've got a solution that allows people to book therapists and have meetings with them. The interesting thing about this as well is that what we found out is the hardest part is not the building of the tool. It's figuring out all the other stuff, like the business stuff. Like initially when we built it, it was a B2C platform. And then we really struggled to get customers, even though our primary thought was that because these therapists are from other countries and are in other countries, the price would be lower, so that would make more people want to book. But the reality is there's a lot of stigmatism around mental health. So the price wasn't the issue. It was more around the stigmatism around mental health and issues there. We moved to B2C and it became a little bit easier. And we're still just trying to grow and learn. But yeah, using no code has allowed us to build a product so we could actually figure out what was all the things that are wrong, so that we can iterate on them and learn on them. Sam has questions. Hello, Sam.
Hi there. Let me put on my camera. So so I'm loving this. I'm absolutely loving what you are sharing with us. Mm-hmm. So can you just, because I can you just capture something? And so I've been onto no code. I've had a quick look at it. There's quite a few. The one that you seem to recommend here is the one with the Google app. Is that correct?
Yeah. So there's so in terms of ease of use, there's one called Glide. So yes. Glide is probably the one that's probably one of the easiest to use. And there's another one that I'm going to show in a while, and this one as well, called Softer. And I can show you how that works. My
question is, if we jump on this, right, and we try and have a go at it, and we're hanging halfway through, can we reach out to you for help?
So the answer to that is no, because I am super busy. But there are. It's actually quite simple. It's not too bad to learn how to use these tools. A lot of them have really easy documentation on how to do things. one of the key things that I always say is, if you get stuck with building stuff, especially with no code, actually like going onto YouTube. So this is how I learned it. So going onto YouTube, going on to asking them. So Softer's team are really responsive. Like every time I have a question, they answer in like a minute.
Okay.
Like the documentation for Glide is really simple as well. So the thing that I would also try to think about, especially when you're trying to build something new, is to build the smallest thing. So there's the concept of the MVP, which you may have heard about. When people build products and services, even their MVP is always too much. Like sometimes the MVP for your product or idea could just be a website. And then, and then you get people to sign up or not, and then you can go from there.
In terms of distribution, so we go through, we've created this app, it's working. So from what unless I didn't hear you correctly, so it won't be in the App Store.
So with Softer, you can push some things to the App Store, and there are lots of tools that let you push things to the App Store. So if you want to, you can.
So for us, so let's assume we didn't even push it to the App Store. Now, right, we've built this app, hooray, it's working. Where will it sit on our phones, or where will it sit on the? Because that's the bit I'm not sure.
Yeah, so it's basically like, so that link in the chat there. If you press it,
okay, the Safer Times one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's basically like it's a link almost like a website.
Right. So what when we're distributing the link.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Precisely. So like if, for example, same thing if you told people to go to Instagram.com, like, right, it's that you're sharing the link.
I heard you say that, but now I understand what you mean. When you were saying it, I was listening, but I actually now it's disconnected. What you mean by that?
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Thank you for the question, though, and sorry for the not being clear as well.
No, it's fine. It's me. Thank you.
Yeah. No worries. Yes. Ali also has a question as well.
Sure. It's just a quick comment. I think I disagree with the term you use. Apps. They're not. They're simple UX UIs for testing, and that totally makes sense. I totally agree with you. Instead of building anything new from scratch, you first test the UX UI, the user experience, to make sure you have got the right requirements and you're building the right thing before you actually code anything. So all the stuff you showed us are essentially basic UX UIs. They're not apps. Even the examples you showed us with the shopping sort of list, that's, the working app would need to access location, would need to access API on Google, read out sort of the databases for shops and things like that. But in order for right product development, you're absolutely right. So we should not build all of that, do a very basic UX UI to test that, validate that. Now we know customers want that, and then we go and build the app. Whereas I think using the term, building app, no code is kind of misleading to other founders that are not technical. They think they can actually go and make an app with no code. It's not true. But basically, they can validate and they can test their hypotheses and assumptions with no code. But the final product, unless it's a very basic website like the one that you showed us with the therapist, that's basically, as you mentioned in the beginning of the session, website is not an app, it's static. Unless it's a website, they can't really build an app with no code. They can test their assumptions with no code. That's my opinion and my experience in the past 15 years building software. I just wanted to share that with you and the group.
Awesome, thank you so much. So I disagree, but that's why I love these conversations. So I will show you something.
Well, may I make a comment quickly, just based on that?
Sure.
So my interpretation of the workshop, I'm looking over here because the screensaver comes here. So my interpretation of the workshop so far is that that's exactly what we're doing. Instead of spending loads of money and loads of resource and time and energy in building a big app to find out later on that it doesn't work, this is literally what we're doing. You're showing us how we can start to create some sort of interface to test the product, the MVP to the market, as opposed to saying that you're helping us create an app. So I think so that's my interpretation. I think you are doing what Ali just said personally. But I was also thinking it'd be great to have this knowledge 2 years ago, because I'm the type of person who goes automatically to ebooks and PDFs. So similar to yourself, I was thinking, what can I do at the beginning of the pandemic to help people who are struggling? And so my background is in the investment industry. And so I thought about all the holiday repayment loans and thought, let's just centralize that information, because people will be so overwhelmed they don't make good decisions, especially financial decisions, when they're stressed. And so instead of creating something like you've just demonstrated with the Save the Times, I went for a PDF, but it would have been so much better had I known that Glider existed in terms of its ability to help people. So thank you very much for bringing it to my attention.
No worries. Yeah, I have really good points from everyone as well. So I think so, like a PDF is like a great MVP, and then you can use some of these other products that we've spoken about as well. But the reason why I disagree with Ali is because I initially started building these products because I didn't know much about product development, and I didn't know about, I didn't understand concepts for things. So like things didn't click. So it was easy for me to understand that, oh, actually, if you want to build a product, build a list of things, you can just put it into a Google Sheet and then turn it out. The more I got used to understanding these tools, the more complex my tool set became. So I moved on to another tool called Adalo, which I won't show you now. And then afterwards, I started using a tool called Bubble. So Bubble allows you to build the kind of complex tools that Ali is talking about. So I'll just show you Bubble quickly. Just let's see if I've actually, I'll just show you. So let's see. Cool. So Cluso is a product that I built, which allows you to create surveys. So I'll create one now, just to show you like the level of complexity that you can add to a tool once you start learning it. Let's say MSDUK check-in. I won't put a picture there. How was this session? Let's see if I can just find a picture. So let's use that. Cool. So I've got created a new survey. I can now make this. So say I wanted to think of some questions that I wanted to ask you all, and I didn't know what to write. I can press this. It says, describe who you're trying to reach. Founders on the MSDUK program. They are current users, current audience. What you're trying to find out, how was my session on building apps without code? Did they enjoy it? How can I improve it? Ooh, dyslexia is improve it. What that does is that connects to OpenAI's chat API and generates me questions that I could ask you all. So it's gone into the background and generated some questions here. So I can connect to different APIs, and APIs basically allow you to connect to all different kinds of services to add some more functionality and complexity to your product to be able to make it more feature rich. What I've also done is once it's connected to the, once I've received some answers, I can create the survey, send it to people, and then I can get it lets you do voice transcriptions of voice notes as answers. It then transcribes the text, and then I can also do summaries on the text as well. So I can build really complex products and services that would probably take, again, a developer a while to build something like this complex tool that I can do in, it takes me a little bit more time, but like a week, if that. So I understand the, let's go to, yeah. So these are all the responses, for example, that I got for a test that I did. And then it just generated the summary in the background. And I can press the summarize button and it summarizes all the text. So I can create products that are linked to other things and are very feature rich, which is why I was saying that with my app, with my startup that I was building before. It took us ages, raised a load of money, and I could build it in a few days now. So the more you the more you learn about some of these tools, the easier it is to be able to build more complex solutions out. There are always going to be downsides to some of these tools as well, but the benefits of being able to build something fast and by yourself, it allows you to learn from the market, if that makes sense. Yep, I think Ali's written something. I totally agree with the methodology, not to build, find. Yep. Yeah, I think so. I think we covered some of that stuff. But yeah, there are positives and negatives to both building with code, building without code. If you are a developer and already know how to code, then it's always a lot probably better sometimes. But some people still use no code tools to be able to build products out. But ultimately, I think the thing that I'm really talking about here is how can we mitigate risk and how can we add value to your customers and to the market? How can you learn from the market quickly? How can you not make the mistakes that countless people have made with code and no code to build the wrong thing? So there was I think I spoke about it before, there was a company called Quibi in the beginning of the pandemic, 2020. They raised billions. They had like the CEO of like a big like TV company. They wanted to make short form videos. They raised like 20 billion or something like that, and like nobody used their thing. They had the best developers. They had a marketing team. They had it had everything going for them, except for the fact that nobody wanted what they were building. So regardless of whether you're coding or not coding, people build terrible things with code all the time. People build terrible things with no code all the time. It's more about how can I learn from the market quickly so I can adjust quickly. And that's why I like no code. It's not an either or situation, but that's why I like it. Victor has a question.
Yeah, hi, Dan. Thanks so much for the presentation so far. It's actually kind of a two-part question. So with this latest, I guess, website, is it that you displayed with the connection to the OpenAI API, which allows it to generate those questions? Did you do all of that with no code, like fetch a link to the API or something and just feed that in somewhere?
Yeah. So hopefully it won't show my API key, but this is the back end of the platform. I have a plugins bit that connects to the API, and I connect to one tool called SMB API that does the transcription for me, and then OpenAI does the summaries, generating questions, and other stuff. So if I, for example,
Okay. My next question was more about, so it's possible to push these apps to the App Store, correct? Okay. And for the ones you displayed before, where they fetched data from like Google Sheet or something like that, is it possible to build these out in such a way that if you change the information from the source of its information, it will automatically update across platforms and users who have the apps on their devices?
Absolutely. So I'm gonna give you all a break, because it might be some time for just like 5-minute break, just for you to get some water, digest some of this, and then I'm gonna build something for you And then maybe that will help explain some of these concepts as well. But yes, is the answer to that question.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, no worries. Cool. So yeah, let's say come back at 32, 33. And then, yeah, we'll go from there. Cool. Coming back slowly. I understand that this is a lot to take in and can be a bit challenging and confronting, like happens to me all the time and everyone trying to do things as well. But I think, yeah, some of the easiest ways to explain kind of how it can work is just to kind of show how simple it can be. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is basically make a simple app ultimately, and just to show you how quick it can be. So I'm going to think of, okay, well, I'm on the website called, it's for ChatGPT. It's called chat.openai.com, and it lets you ask questions and you get answers to things. So give me 10 nut-free recipes, recipes for, doesn't matter, for healthy meals. Yeah, let's see. Depending on how. Cool. So while it's doing this, so I've just asked ChatGPT to give me a list of things, and while it's doing that, I'm going to go to Airtable. So Airtable is a bit like Google Sheets, but in fact, let me do Google Sheets. Let's see. Okay, cool. So if you type in sheet.new, you can get a Google Sheet. That's like nut-free recipes. So you got name, recipe. Don't know why I keep spelling that wrong. It's annoying me. Cool. And then if I go back to where is the new chat? Cool. So we've got baked lemon garlic salmon. So if I now go here, got the name, baked lemon garlic salmon. Then if I go to new chat, get this recipe, put it in here, make this what? I'm just going to do 3. We don't need to do all of them. I think in OpenAI you could actually also get it to do it in a table format, but let's that. So the reason why I went for nut-free is because my brother is allergic to nuts. So I thought it might be good. So put that in there, and cool. Let's say we did all of those things. And now if I go to Glide, open Glide, and oops, sometimes let's go to Yoda, cool. So Dan's project, we'll call it nut-free recipes. Make it a guide, like that one. You wanted to connect it to a Google Sheet, so we'll go connect. Click on here. So I just found my Google Sheet. And yeah, cool. So I haven't got a picture for it yet, but I've got the name and the recipe already in there. So with even just a little bit more work, if I just added an image, I could make it look beautiful. Yeah, I'll do that in a bit. But the thing that is great is if I publish it, not free recipes, Dan, oops, then publish. I copy this app link and put it on here. If any of you click on that, you will see. I've got it set up, so you have to have the email. So I'll change that. Privacy, public, cool, and share. Let's see if that's. Let's refresh. I require optional sign in. Anyone? Cool. Let's try that again. Yeah, boom. Cool. Yeah. So I made an app. Which yeah. So
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about in like under 3 minutes. And which then means I'm now figuring out, actually, it's not about the building of the app. Does anyone care about these nut-free allergies? Can I get this thing in front of people and get them to see if they want more? Can I, do I need to change these recipes? Are they tasty? What's my acquisition strategy? Can I start segmenting this? Can I get sponsors for my nut-free allergy list? Can I have a Zoom link to a potential, if people want to have a chef make it for them, maybe that's my upsell. Like, I'm not thinking about the functionalities too much of this thing. I'm thinking about actually the business. Yeah, so that's that part. And then let me go back to my, I can close that. Let me share this screen. Move this round. Oops.
Hey Dan, sorry,
Yeah.
just a quick question following what you just made.
Mhm.
Would it be possible with such an app to distribute it, and then when people are sort of signing up, entering email address and password,
Mhm.
that gets sent over to, well, you, the creator, or to some designated database that you have made for receiving that?
Absolutely. So within Glide, you could have automations. So you can say when someone signs up, then put that email into a list. Yeah,
Okay.
and then you can, so you can do stuff like that. Again, if you link up the data to Airtable, then again you can do similar automations, or you can use something like Zapier. Zapier, I'll just share my screen if you hold on.
But like someone could actually create an account, say, this is my email, this is my password.
Yeah,
whenever
absolutely.
I come back and log in with
Yeah,
this.
so that's what it had automatically when I set it up, and I took that off just to make it public. But it was typically set up to be email, logging with your email.
Sure, I just thought the email was just so you were creating like a newsletter on the side or something.
Oh no, you can have it. You can have it to sign up and security.
All right, great.
Yeah. Rohit asked, based on your previous experience, have you always found no-code solutions to build most product ideas, or do you often struggle to build more complex products? So because I now use pretty much exclusively a tool called Bubble, I can pretty much build anything with it. So the complex tools I build with it, even simple ones, because it's now quicker for me to build stuff and I like to make things look good. I use Bubble. So if you hold on 1 second, let's go back to here. Really good questions, friends. Let me share my screen. Let me go to up on share. So Loom got fashion. Oops, that's definitely spelled wrong. Let's try that again. Loom got fashion. It's app. I think it's app or shop. Loom got fashion. What is it? App? Let's see. Yeah, cool. So client project that I built for using Bubble. It's basically an e-commerce kind of store with like some social elements. You can upload projects, you can see profiles, you can see images of clothes, you can buy the product if you're signed in. But yeah, you can build complex things and make them look as much as you want. The thing is, the more complex the tool, the longer it takes for you to build it. And the longer it takes for you to build it, the longer it takes for you to get the validation. So oftentimes with my own projects, I'll try and spend as little time on them, try to get the core functionality working and put it out into the world so I can learn. Whereas with client projects, they usually have like, oh, it really needs to look like this or have its own style and stuff. But ultimately, the more complex the tools, you can, the more functionality and control that you have, the more functionality that you have on that you can add and customizable. Yeah, Ali said basic e-commerce. Okay, so in terms of the look and the style and stuff like that they particularly wanted, they wanted to go down a particular route of things. But I guess my tool was complex, right? Like I'm using 2 APIs, I'm doing transcription, I'm being able to create surveys, I am able to summarize the text and give actionable insights based on the text. Like that is complex. The level of complexity, the more complex the tool is, like Bubble, the more you can do with it. But yeah, Sunny, I hope I pronounced that right, has a question.
Morning. Hi. Is it possible you can show me an example for a service-based company? A lot of the examples or theory you've spoken about is for product, but I'm service-based and I'm trying to figure out how this works for a service. I feel like, and I know there's a lot to take in today, I feel like there's a bit that's been skipped from a fantastic story for us to learn from and showing us real examples, but I'm trying to link it together as in, how am I to use this?
Yeah, that is a very good question, and I will talk a little bit more. I was going to talk more about that on Wednesday session.
Oh, that's fine then. If you're covering that on Wednesday, that's absolutely fine. I just felt like, am I sat here in a bit of a Monday morning daze, not understanding?
No, absolutely not. Ultimately, let me click out of this and let me go back to my share screen, and I want to go to my keynote. Cool. So you should be able to see my keynote. Cool. So let's just get into this. So you might be thinking just how useful is information in the Google Sheet or in the Airtable. So it's about lists. So starting from the basics, lists are a series of things. They can be ordered or unordered. Unordered means there's no order in them in the way that they're presented. So you just put, like I put in my list of nut things, nut recipes. However, it's not really that useful. We need to be useful as we can to our customers and users. So ultimately, you might want to make your list of things ordered. The reason why I'm talking about lists, so order things by ratings, alphabetically rated. This is important because when it comes to building apps, or most apps are just a series of lists. So let's look at that Instagram very quickly. Instagram is just a list of posts, which are images or videos. It also has a list of stories at the top and a list of comments, and then replies are a list within a list. So as soon as you start understanding that everything is a list, it makes things easier to think about when you're trying to think about a list of valuable things for your Google Sheet Airtable, which you could turn into an app. So ultimately, once you start figuring out what value you have that could be ordered into a series of things, then it makes it easier for you to put that into a form that you could easily potentially share with potential clients. So could you give me an example of your business?
Yeah, so it's branding identity for startups, people that are planetary focused around sustainability or social environments.
Yeah, so there are multiple things that you could do. And again, this is why I find that this exercise or trying to think about things in this way is useful, is because if you start thinking about, okay, what either do your customers or users care about, or what information do you have that could be useful for your potential customers or users? So for example, it could be, and this is a terrible idea, but list of like branding terms, right? They don't know what branding terms are. You could put that into a list of branding terms and what they could be used for and how you could use them. And then maybe share that out. That might not be that useful for them, but there might be something that is useful for your potential customers or users that they could use to be able to, and they could use and care about, right? Because ultimately it's really about value. What value are they seeking? What value can you offer? And how could you use that to either retain customers, engage potential customers, or grow your business out? So, for example, that nut recipe thing, the idea that I had, that could be good for a bakery that makes delicious foods. You could have a list of some really great recipes, and then have a link for them to buy some stuff, or a link for them to find out how to make things, or a link for them to be able to just stay engaged with the business. So you could have its own personalized product that keeps people interested in nut-free meals. And then that could be the start of a food delivery service. So as soon as you start figuring out what value that your potential customers would need or want, or things that they're looking for, you can arguably put that into a list of things and then turn it into a potential product. So example is Tectonic is a service-based business. One of the things that people keep on asking us is, how do you write compelling questions for and unbiased questions for surveys? Because once they know that they are writing survey questions that are biased, they're like, okay, can you tell me how to write unbiased questions? So I created a Glide app that had a list of all of these questions that you could ask, and use that as a potential sales piece for clients. So, oh, you can also buy this app that will help you write questions if you don't want to pay us to do it. Does that kind of make sense? And I'll go through more about this a bit later, because actually as soon as you start realizing that most things are lists of things, and that actually segmenting value and understanding value is the key to being able to kind of like bring this all to life, it makes it much easier to understand, I think. But it is, regardless of whether you're a service-based business or a digital business, ultimately you're trying to probably grow your business, retain your customers, or get new business, right? So finding out what they care about and then doing that ideally in a scalable way is probably the key. And the reason why you typically use digital products and services, because it allows you to scale quicker as well. That makes sense?
Yeah, I think I'll wait for Wednesday's session. I think maybe that might put things into a bit of context, but yeah, no, that helps. Thank you.
I'm going to stop here and just answer any more questions that people may have. I know that, oops, let's go here. I know that it's a lot to take in. I know that it can be a bit ethereal. I know that it can be a bit challenging, and then also a bit unclear as well. However,
Dan, let me start shooting questions. I know your time is limited. So I don't want to make any assumptions. So no code is free. Is that correct?
Not all no code things are free, no.
Right. But all the things that you've used in the implementation today, are they all free?
Yes.
Okay. Then the other thing is the softer, you called it, what was it,
Softer, SOFTR.
Is that free?
There is a free, there's a free tier, yes.
Is it free tier? So creating the sort of apps that you did today, did you use the free tiers on that?
For which one, sorry?
The nuts one, the nuts.
Yeah, I use the free one on that.
The free one, okay. All right, those are my questions. Thank you.
Cool. Tyrell says, wait, they have free trials but are not free. So depending on, I would have a look, because oftentimes they've got like free lists. So like, for example, Glide has, when I used it last, it had like, you could have a list of, like say 100 things for free or whatever. And so you can just check. One of the things to think about though is, as I mentioned, developers are £500 a day. Even like, if one of those is £20 a month, for example, even if you only use it for 1 month and you realize that nobody wants your thing, you didn't spend £500. So I think the thing is about the context of the pricing is, A, try and use as much of the free stuff as possible, or the trial, change your email addresses if necessary. Secondly, if you do need to pay because, for example, you're reaching the limit because people are using your product or service, that's a good problem to have. And then again, the route that I would go down is again, okay, why are they using my thing? How can I figure out how to turn that into more revenue to either cover the cost of this thing or make more money in another way. So yeah, they have free trials. They also are, some of them are costly, in like they have a monthly price, however less than the price of a developer for a day. That's how I justify the pricing of some of these things.
Dan, just to say that a lot of the things that we use, even in this company, they cost thousands. So what you're saying, even at £20, £30, it's peanuts. It's absolute peanuts. But the reason why I was asking is the time frame. So when we're playing with things, I'm really trying to work out, for example, if we're playing with this, can we play with it at no cost, or is there a budget to it? And even if we're talking in groups outside, when we finish here, I know there's going to be another group conversing about this. So some of these things is for people to have clarity, because some people have no idea how to use technical, and we want them spending money and not understanding what they're doing and thinking that they're losing out. So that's why I was asking those questions. But everything that you said, I'm a digital marketer, right? I've got 3 staff that work with me, so I appreciate the value that you're bringing to the table, and I know how much we pay for some things. And with this no code, I'm just going to change some things for the next quarter, because if this can work, it's going to slash our costs on some things. So personally, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No worries, no worries. Cool.
I have a quick question, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So I just want to echo what was just said. Thank you very much. Like, it's really interesting and enlightening to sort of figure out and know how else we can do things and apply things. And I'm wondering, in terms of, you know, how Squarespace has membership sites now, and I was wondering how could it be used to either enhance the user experience or integrate or take it further from being a static website, which the Squarespace membership would be, to evolving that into a web app type of thing? So
I guess it depends on what you want to do for example, it depends on what you want to do and what your customers potentially want, but you can connect Squarespace and other tools to something called Zapier. And Zapier allows you does like automations. It basically connects sites together and connects websites and products and services together. So for example, at a very basic level, you could say when someone signs up, then send these 4 people an email address, an email with some information in there, or you could have it connect up to whenever they do something, then do something else on a different platform. So that's how you could start adding some more functionality to your site. Zapier is kind of expensive. There's another tool called make.com, which is far cheaper. I hate the UI on it. HTTPS. So make.com. But it's much more affordable and a bit more powerful. But I don't really like the UI. But ultimately, they do the same thing, which is you can connect your product or service to another one. You can do things in the middle and like make it feel more functional or creative.
Awesome. Thank you very much for today's session.
No worries.
Hi, Dan.
Hi.
I just wanted to ask about like cybersecurity. Is that a concern with these things? Like, is it safe to be collecting people's data over these no-code apps?
Yep, so that's a good question. So it depends. And I guess, and you'd have to look into the GDPR stuff for yourself and your own specific needs. A lot of the things are you're not supposed to keep any information that you aren't going to need, and don't keep any information on there that you won't for a period of time, and also allow people to like opt out of having their information collected. So you can do some stuff like that on there. Regarding like if you want to be really secure with some of the stuff, there is a database tool called Xano, xano.com, and that goes more into low code territory. I think that's the website. That goes more into low code territory, and that is much more compliant with some of these things. But again, you have to check what the rules are and make sure that it's compliant for what you're trying to do, because obviously different people have different needs and different businesses.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. No, my concern is more, from hackers, like, could you be collecting data and then, oh, you're a startup, you didn't spend so much in securing the data, and you have to put out a press release that, oh, we're sorry, we got hacked and your data may have been leaked or something. No one wants to do that.
Yeah. Good questions. I think some of these things are only as secure as your security is in general. So like if you just are careful with the information that you have and like passwords and all that jazz, then there's stuff that you can do. But I guess big companies have security leaks all the time as well. So you just have to be just more careful, I guess. That's generally my approach.
Thanks, Dan.
No worries. I think someone else had a question as well, just before we jump on.
It was just me. No, forget about it. It's all right.
Yeah, no worries.
Cool.
Awesome. I hope that was helpful. I imagine that Wednesday's session will probably bring up a lot of questions, so I'll probably hang on, start with answering some questions in case anyone has any thoughts, if they play with some stuff beforehand, and then we can go into some more stuff. And again, if you have any specific questions about how it could apply to you, we could have a chat about that as well. But yeah.
Great,
Nice.
thank you. Nice one.
Thank
No
you
worries.
everyone for today's session, and thank you Dan for delivering today's session. So we'll see you guys on Wednesday morning.
See you
Thank you.
Wednesday. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Dan. Bye.